everybody. Hello, hello. It is time to rock and roll through this Wednesday, this hump day. I'm Felicia Lawrence.
Oh no. I'm Amy Rutledge, and I'm alongside what seems to be a very, very sad John Hansen. Welcome to the Jam. We're going to bring up his mood.
We will. Just the Cubbies lost today in their baseball opener, 5-1 at Wrigley. They look terrible. The White Sox lost 5-3 to the A's, so they got an elimination game tomorrow. Both teams do. Both teams' seasons could be over, or they could be extended tomorrow. So we'll see. Hopefully they'll get it back. I'm going to cheer up. Good thing we got real great news nationally with politics. And oh wait, never mind. That's depressing too.
John,
let's just roll,
my God.
Let's just roll into it. The aftershocks of last night's wrestling match / debate are still reverberating the political world today, to say the least. So in case you missed it or you turned your TV off in disgust, the candidates, they traded insults, they traded interruptions, but hardly any policy went back and forth. Moderator Chris Wallace had to stop the debate at one point and basically yell, "I'm going to turn the car around if you boys don't stop yelling at each other." So Vox actually counted President Trump's interruptions of either Vice President Biden or Chris Wallace, and it was over 150 interruptions. Overall, just a real mess.
A lot of times you couldn't even hear the candidates, but you know what? As you can imagine today, we heard them loud and clear on social media. Tweets have flown all day about last night's debates. Both camps highlighting video clips of their own great moments in the debate. Joe Biden tweeting at the president. Let's take a look. These are a couple of the most recent tweets that have been out there. You heard a lot come out on President Trump's mouth. Can you name one thing he said to actually make your life better? Of course, President Trump has his own retorts, as he often does via the Twitter machine. President Trump versus Chris Wallace versus Joe Biden. And at this point, if I had to pick from the top three, I'd say Chris Wallace won that one.
Yeah, right, for sure.
Oh, man. Well, the chaos was so bad. The Commission of Presidential Elections, they're now jumping in. They're saying that they're going to add new tools to help keep order. Although we have no word yet on what those tools will actually be. I personally really, really hope it'll include a mute button. That's just a personal.
We're talking about the mute button.
Yeah, right. Like our meetings for work, just mute people.
Yes. Hello. Haven't they heard of Zoom? Let's get it together.
Yeah, right.
Well, we heard very few real answers during the debate and countless interruptions. It was frustrating to watch, but even more frustrating if you happen to be the person in that difficult conversation. We've got founder of Level Comm and communications expert Sherhara Downing joining us with tips. Sherhara, thank you for being here. And it's so hard when someone is interrupting you constantly. How do you handle that?
The first thing you probably want to do is just pull your hair out, or perhaps actually make it a boxing match, right? But we know that's not an option. We cannot do those things. And a lot of times we're not prepared when some of those difficult conversations or talking with difficult people, show up in our day-to-day work or even our personal lives. So it's like, how do you even really prepare for it?
What would you say to people when they get in these conversations? And maybe it's a conversation they're around other people where they need to keep their calm and look a little bit more collected. How do you do that when you're getting so frustrated by the way the other person is interacting with you?
Yes. And, I think that the best way, I kind of thought about this even as I'm, understanding and replaying the debate in my mind. And the first thing that I thought to myself is, goodness gracious, you have to remain present. And when I say remain present, it's going to, one, help you bring your blood pressure down, right? Because you will be upset, you will be frustrated. But to remain present also helps to remind you of why you're even in the conversation. It reminds you of what your message should be. It reminds you that if you do have a message, it's perhaps for someone or some organization to make something better, so that you can contribute, change, maybe status quo, whatever that conversation is, and you find yourself with your blood pressure rising, your face turning red, Take a deep breath and be present, because what happens sometimes is we get in our head and we get frustrated that they're not listening. Oh my gosh, no, they didn't just interrupt me again. No one's coming to my defense. No one's helping me. No one's advocating for me. Oh my gosh, I'm in here by myself. And now you're even further away from the reason why you're even supposed to be in the conversation. And that is to deliver some type of message, to come up with some type of solution, whatever that conversation may be. So the first piece of advice that I would offer is to remain present.
Yeah, I've tried this whole time not to interrupt you in the middle of this interview as well, by the way. Great point, number one. And obviously, this is different whether it's like a one-on-one conversation between two people and that's it, or you have an audience. And obviously last night you're talking about 100 million people watching a debate, but in conversations at work amongst friends, a lot of times there's people around you. So who ends up looking better? Is it the person that drives it and interrupts? Or do you kind of have to take some solace knowing that, yeah, I may be on the defensive a bit, but I have the respect of people if I can keep it cool?
John, you're absolutely right. The two other things that I would say in a space like that, and again, even if it's a private conversation, and even more so when it's a public conversation and people are watching, it becomes very evident who the bully is. It becomes very hard to, ignore who's being rude, who's being out of line. So if you know you're not the person who's doing all of the interrupting, then the next space for you is to now say, you know what, I'm gonna remain patient. And I say patient because there will be a window where that person has to take a breath, and then that's where you jump in and try to offer what it is that you have to say, to try to add in your 2 cents. And then the last thing, the third piece is then also just be persistent in a space like that, especially if it's something like a public forum. You're going to have that conversation. You're going to have to sit there and try to make it all the way through. So you do still have to be persistent. You can't not show up, and you can't just shut down, but being present and then also being patient and then being persistent. I definitely believe there's a lot more that will speak volumes of that type of poise than really giving up and showing your frustration.
Sherhara, we have 30 seconds left. Please tell me, when should you know that you should walk away from the conversation? When is enough enough? Because I saw a lot of moments I would have walked away yesterday.
Absolutely. In a space like that, you can't walk away, right? It's on national television. You got to be there. But in the spaces where it's in your workplace or even at home, when you cannot get yourself to remain patient, when you feel your bubble boiling up, when you know that you don't have the poise to control yourself, then that's the time that you just say, I'm going to walk away from this. When you feel like you can't even control self, even though someone else is trying to control the entire conversation, then you have to say, you know what, we're going to have to table this conversation for another time. And then you can walk away.
Okay, and then give it a neck roll and put the hand in their face, and you just let them know.
If you gotta let some of the energy out, if you have to let some of the energy out, then yeah, snap a finger, roll the eyes, let them know you're done. Put a fork in me.
I'm talking to my kids.
Thank you so much.
That in there. I just threw that in there because I like a dramatic exit, but listen to Sherhara, not me. Thanks, Sherhara. You can get more advice from Sherhara at levelcomm.com. That's where she's doing it up big there. And of course, we've had all this political talk. We've had all this political talk. I just want to remind folks that they should be registering to vote. CW26chicago.com. We've got a whole bunch of resources up there for you to make sure that you are at the polls come, I guess before November 3rd, or mail-in voting, that too.
Only I would interrupt you after the segment about interrupting people. Okay, Google, one of the top searches yesterday while this was all going on was how to apply for Canadian citizenship. This was happening obviously during the debate. Now, some people were in such a hurry to find out how the heck to get up to Canada that actually one of the top searches was how to move to Canada. They couldn't even spell it correctly and get all the vowels in there, but that was spiking. I know people always threaten this every election, but a lot of my friends are like, if this keeps going like this, I'm getting out.
You know what's so funny is in 2016, I remember my husband and I, and this was all over social media then too, we discussed where we would move if Trump won. We're like, all right, we're going to New Zealand. Let's go. This is a common conversation. And
Right. Why New Zealand?
Small talk, that's why. Oh, I love New Zealand. It's the most beautiful place in the world.
Well, by the way, all the borders are closed anyways. Canada doesn't want us, so there you go.
Right.
Yeah. I think people were typing so fast, like you're missing vowels out of that Canada.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
saw some
Africa,
great
I looked
posts.
up Ghana. I've been to Africa
You did?
3 different times. I've been to 3 different countries in Africa, and I'm like, what are the options here?
Yeah, sounds pretty good to me. Krista, where are you going?
Oh, I'm just not anywhere but here. I would go to Europe, but a lot of tweets were talking about how other countries could just even watch that. So that's a whole other story. But coming up, speaking of tweets, it was hard to break away from watching that dumpster fire of a debate, but I occasionally did to check the old Twitter. So I'm going to have some of the best debate tweets in just a little bit. And Brandon Pope, I got to say, you had some pretty good tweets yourself, my man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I tend to tweet away. It was the only way to distract myself from that chaos that fell on screen. But hey, Krista, coming up here in a bit, news you need to know, we're going to talk about the latest in the Breonna Taylor case and the battle to get the grand jury evidence released. That's all coming up. News you need to know. More of that coming up here on the channel. The news you need to know, we're following the latest in a shooting in Milwaukee outside a funeral home. It happened around 1 o'clock. 7 people were shot, but police say they are all expected to survive their wounds, and they're still out looking for the unknown shooter at this time. We also got some updates here in the Breonna Taylor case. The Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron has been given until noon on Friday to release the grand jury recordings. A county judge ordered their release, but Cameron says his office needs some time to redact the names of private citizens and others who are mentioned who may not want their identities put forward. Meanwhile, Detective Miles Cosgrove one of the officers who fired shots in Taylor's apartment is raising money to fund his retirement. It's on this, it's not GoFundMe, it's like a Christian mingle sort of site that raises money. He raised over $9,000 so far, but he's seeking $75,000. He claims his family has been threatened and he just wants to retire, be happy, and maybe move away from Louisville. What are your thoughts on this, John?
The crowdsourcing thing, I don't even want to get into. I think it's historic in many ways that we're going to get these grand jury documents and tapes unsealed. I think it's great. I think some transparency in this case is warranted, and I'm prepared for, and I think we all should be, some real stiff ramifications coming Friday afternoon and beyond, depending on what is on these tapes.
Yeah, we got to see what this looks like, what the recordings are going to say, and what they will reveal. My question again is whether or not a case for Breonna Taylor was presented to the jury. Attorney General Cameron has said that the jury could have recommended whatever charges they saw fit. However, it's his job. He's the expert in this case, and it's his job to present all the options out there in front of the people. So I want to know. I want to make sure that happened.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've seen a lot of reporting out there that charges against the two officers were not presented to the grand jury for them to consider. However, also hearing that was not done so because of the laws there are so much different and they protect officers differently. So they might not have been able to present those charges. So it's really interesting. It's going to be whether or not you agree with the findings and the presentation or whether or not we're understanding the law. I think is where the confusion is going to lie.
Yeah. Going to be interesting to see. All right, another story here. We got some early voting numbers from the Illinois Board of Elections, and they're pretty interesting. Nearly a quarter of registered voters in the state of Illinois have requested mail-in ballots. That's a lot. There's over 2 million people registered to vote. More than 57,000 people have already cast their ballot. In person, early voting begins Thursday in Chicago at the Loop Super site that's over there on Clark Street. But yeah, the enthusiasm and getting your ballot cast early, probably a good idea right now to avoid the rush too.
Yeah, it's interesting, Brandon, too, because just last night, President Trump addressed that in the debates, kind of gaslighting the whole situation again, talking about how much this could potentially compromise the election, worried about voters trying to vote twice again. And so that comes on the heels where I think that they might have to swallow that a little bit. If all these votes go in early and they get done properly, then we're going to be able to show that it can still be done via mail.
Well, Amy said exactly what I was going to say. All I do say now instead is I still haven't filled out my ballot. It's right here, even though I got it yesterday. Still looking at all those judges. A lot of Googling, people. This is hard work. I'm going to get it done quick and send it in.
Yeah, that'll be good. Illinois has, well, in my opinion, is not really an issue when it comes to this. I'm thinking about the other states that I've lived in my life, some southern states, and they do not have early voting for as long as we do here. We have over a month, it seems like, of early voting. And some states may have a couple of weeks, a couple of days, like it all depends. So the more time we have to get it together, I guess that'll be good. People just have to get those mail-in ballots in, John. So don't you wait too long.
I'm trying.
All right, thanks, B.
Krista.
All right, guys, the debate was still buzzing all over social media all day. Rightfully so. It was a doozy. So we're going to have a look at some of the funnier tweets right after this. But first, here's a look at tomorrow's forecast. We're seeing some showers. Get a raincoat. We'll be All right, it was a chaotic and stressful and confusing 90 minutes we watched or drank our way through last night. But this is why we have Twitter, guys, okay? It's the place to go when you don't know what you're feeling and you search the timeline and everyone else is feeling the same way you are. So here's a look at some really funny tweets that, kind of made me feel a little bit better about this whole situation. So take a look at this first tweet. This is the only way the It Clown would get me to follow him down the sewer. I have a TV that's not showing the presidential debate.
Yes.
I mean, it's pretty rough. Okay, this next one. Do you believe, I was talking about this a little bit earlier, but do you believe that other countries were actually watching? This debate is so bad, Canada just built a wall.
Yeah, I've seen other ones that I've seen other ones that say something like Canada must be like the upstairs apartment wondering why their downstairs neighbor is building a meth lab. So
yes, I've seen that one too. I loved it.
And you guys saying that it was the top Google last night, people wanting to move there, you can't do it. There's a wall.
Yeah.
And all right, were you guys ever thinking, what were we even watching? This tweet sums it up. Am I watching a comedy, a horror, a terrible school play, two drunk guys arguing outside of a bar, or a presidential debate?
I think
The two drunk guys outside the bar is probably pretty cool.
Probably pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty spot on. All right, and I've got a couple more. Look at this one. This debate is every conversation I've had with a narcissistic ex. This hits home.
Oh.
Felicia's
this last
been
one is so good. I know you're going to love this. We need Andy to moderate the next debate.
Yes.
This is worse than a Real Housewives reunion.
It
Hashtag
is.
debate
That's so
2020.
funny.
Can I
Oh
say
my gosh,
something?
so funny.
The
Can
best
I say
part
something?
about go. Oh, that was a
Oh
reference.
no, that was
gonna
a
say,
gift.
The absolute best part about all this is scrolling through Twitter. I mean, that's the only redeeming factor of all this presidential debate stuff.
Oh, man.
Thanks, Trisha.
I know that.
Thanks, guys.
We'll leave it there.
Yeah, we'll talk about it during the break. We'll be right back.
I want to talk more about Real Housewives.
I know you do. You do.
Oh, coming up on a real gorgeous sunset amongst broken clouds in about 20 minutes. Okay, meat free since '83. That's the slogan of the Chicago Diner. They gave the Chicago Food to Go crew a look behind the counter.
Hi, I'm Michael. Welcome to the Chicago Diner. I'm one of the partners. We've been doing what we do since 1983. My Uncle Mickey and Aunt Joe started this vegetarian mecca well before anyone really understood what it was about. So one of our big things is really making sure that we've got great comfort food for everybody. We've got a few items today that we've prepared for you. We've got our truffle mushroom lentil loaf, which is a lentil casserole that we go ahead and we slice just like a meatloaf. Go ahead and top it with some mushroom gravy and some truffle oil to finish it off. It's served with red roasted potatoes and sauteed garlic green beans. From our brunch items, we have our Country Benedict. So it's a spin on a traditional Eggs Benedict that we do with a fried silken tofu. Top it with a country gravy, so our homemade sausage gravy. And then we've got some sauteed vegetables in there on top of homemade biscuits. Famous Radical Reuben with our corned beef seitan, sauteed peppers and onions, and grilled cabbage, and a little bit of cheese on top, served with marble rye. And then we've got our hand-cut fries to finish it with fresh sea salt as a simple seasoning on that. During this time, we've been working really hard to make sure that we are keeping everybody safe inside and out. And our biggest goal right now is to keep our restaurants open to make sure that we can keep as many people as employed as we can. Our team has been with us for an extremely long time. Obviously, after 37 years, we've got team members with us that have been with us for more than 25 of that. And you can come and find us at our Lakeview location and Logan Square location. Of course, you can visit us at veggiediner.com as well, and Google always finds us faster than anybody else. We are doing everything on our own. We're not using third-party services. We're able to help a local delivery service named JJ Food Delivery Service, and you're able to order directly online at chicagodiner.menu.
All right, those are the two locations as well. And you can catch the Emmy-nominated Chicago Food to Go Sundays at 11:30 on CW26 Rutledge.
Hey, since we're talking about eating a lot, let's talk about Fat Bears. It is Fat Bears Week starting today. That means the Katmai Bears of Brooks River are going to compete head-to-head for you to pick the fattest bear who's going to make it through Bears Week. They say this is a good thing. The fatter the bear, the likelihood of them being healthy when we get out of hibernation, same thing. So we got our brackets.
There you go.
Fill out mine.
That's good.
Fill out yours online. We're going to be comparing them head to head.
Yeah.
Throughout Bears Week.
Exactly. I think we got one of them, and we can see who's going to win tonight, or for the first matchup. There it is. We'll see. Those are our picks.
Oh, I say 56.
We'll break it down as we go.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Happy Wednesday. I'm Felicia Lawrence.
And I'm John Hanson. This pretty lady over here is Amy Rutledge, and you are watching The Jam.
Hey, and you guys, if you're going to see any Chicago Fire Department folks out and about in the month of October, which starts tomorrow, you may notice a lot of them are going to be wearing pink t-shirts and pink gloves and pink face masks because they are celebrating or honoring National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Because they also tell us, CFD says they have the largest number of women in service as firefighters and paramedics than any other department in the country. So they're honoring and paying attention to the need to pay attention to breast cancer research. So you'll see them out there in their pinks.
Gotta love firefighters. I got 3 in the family. They're doing great work.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sure.
they are. I mean, if they couldn't make you love them anymore, it's like everyone already loves firefighters. Now, here we go with this. It's awesome. Well, when it came to talk law and order during the debate, President Trump was quick to call Chicago leaders out for doing a bad job. But Mayor Lightfoot, she said, not so fast, you guys. She took to Twitter. Here's what she had to say. Keep Chicago out of your lying mouth, period. I put the period there. Well,
I think we know
where the actual period there.
That's one of her favorite responses to anything Trump does. So.
Absolutely. You know, with the COVID-19 precautions in place, we certainly didn't see the candidates doing the usual floating about the stage or that hello handshake that's fairly typical. But there were certainly interesting movement moments during the 90 minutes. Joining us is Dr. Chloe Carmichael, clinical psychologist and author of Nervous Energy. And we got to start, Dr. Chloe, by talking about Trump's entrance right off the top, shifting right after he made that entrance. Tell us what you thought of that when you first saw it.
Yeah, that was such an interesting entrance because although he had a vocal tone and his words were actually sounding rather controlled and calm at the beginning, right at the very start, he was shifting his weight back and forth and he had a lot of energy coming out of his body. His feet were even tapping the ground a little bit instead of standing calmly. He was ready for a fight.
Yeah, and it was quite a fight there. You see that shifting and that tapping that you're talking about. Also, when you talk about body language and reactions to it, let's actually take a look at this one clip regarding Vladimir Putin.
I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say.
What do you react to that? Not only Joe Biden's body language, but also the president's reaction there.
Yes, we call that a symbolic weapon gesture, actually. So what he's doing there, and that's actually quite rare for Joe Biden, whereas Trump makes those types of gestures quite often. But for Biden, it's a little bit more rare. So he must have been feeling extremely passionate about that Putin's puppy comment.
Interesting. Well, there were a lot of moments where President Trump showed that he was angry. We have one here. Just looking at this image here, what do you see?
Well, yes, he certainly is angry. You can see even from his hands that he's doing what we call containment gestures. So he's trying to control the space, and there he's doing what we call a chopping gesture. And he actually pointed rather aggressively at Chris Wallace at least 4 times. So people are going to read that differently, right? People on the right would see that and they would say he's standing up and he's passionate and he's fighting for, for the things that he believes in. Whereas people on the left would say he's a bully, he's coming in there and he's bulldozing. All I can really do is look at the behavior and analyze it. And it is definitely an aggressive behavior. He's ready for a brawl.
It was interesting to watch the two go back and forth because obviously they interrupted each other 90% of the entire debate. But a lot of times we caught Biden actually laughing or chuckling when Trump would interrupt him. What do you take of that?
Well, that's an interesting one, too, because most of the time when Biden would laugh or chuckle, he would also look down, which we would normally think of that as a sign of stress or as a sign of dismissiveness, that he just wasn't even going to engage. There was one time, though, where you see that Biden keeps looking right at Trump the whole time and doesn't look away. And that was the time when Chris Wallace was saying, "No, sir, President Trump, it's you who's doing most of the interrupting." And that was what got an unbridled laugh from Biden without any break in eye contact.
One thing that I think Biden did that was interesting, and he did this a few times, is he'd pivot from the engagement with Donald Trump or talking to the moderator and look directly at the camera. Let's take a look at one of those.
Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote vote, vote.
Since he doesn't do it all the time, it's pretty powerful.
Well, that's true. And that was an interesting moment because I think that was right after Chris Wallace had asked him if he would support ending the filibuster. And what he did is a little bit of a walking gesture with his feet, which usually means that, as you said, pivoting or walking away from something. And then he verbally pivoted away from that topic and went full on to the camera and tried to encourage people to vote. So it was a strong attempt to get people onto a different topic than what Chris Wallace was asking him about.
Dr. Chloe, I wanted to ask because they're obviously behind two podiums, so we're limited in maybe how much we can see. As we pivot to a town hall format, where I remember 2016, the walking behind of Secretary Clinton that President Trump did, does that make you, I mean, are you taking way more notes during a format like that? Or are you able to, each debate has its own, I guess, ammo for you to analyze?
Well, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, certainly with the restricted behaviors here, it's a little bit hard to, analyze everything that they do when they're a little bit more confined. But on the other hand, it did give us a smaller space to have to analyze. So it had its pros and cons.
Dr. Chloe, thanks so much for joining us. I mean, these things are always so interesting. I love getting your perspective, and hopefully we'll talk to you again after the next one. You can find Dr. Chloe on social media and, of course, at drchloe.com, and look for her book coming out next spring. All right, guys, most important, we learned at the end of all of this, you gotta vote. You gotta make sure your voice is heard no matter which side of the aisle you are on. So make sure to register to vote, get all the information about where you are, getting those absentee ballots, getting the mail-in ballots. Go to cw26chicago.com and you'll find all the information you need.
Okay, talk about body language, joke, and a segue all in one. Gotta love those. A group of Pennsylvania lawmakers, they're making some news because they're getting naked to try and help people vote by mail correctly. Ballots in the Commonwealth have to be returned inside two separate envelopes. It's kind of complicated, one and then another one. And if you don't return it, it's considered a naked ballot and it doesn't count. The Supreme Court just ruled that it doesn't count in the state of Pennsylvania a bit ago. So as you can see, these lawmakers getting the ballots over their nude bodies, getting some extra eyes on an important cause. I think it's great.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to do it. I mean, they say we don't read, so you gotta pay attention to the directions.
I would say that too. I looked at a bunch of the responses and it was really interesting to see Republicans frustrated that this was the reaction that they were getting from the Democratic side on mail-in voting. Also, they were saying that they want to get Amy Barrett into the Supreme Court faster because they need to clean up problems like this. It was such an interesting retort that came around this idea. I thought it was a fantastic idea. And hey, people were looking at the signs. Isn't that all they were trying to do?
And
people divided on the internet. Oh my gosh, shocker. But yeah, it is fascinating to read through that. Brandon Pope, he always strips down naked to promote his Twitter and Instagram. He puts his handle right over his, yeah, I've seen that before, Brandon. You do a good job at that. That's how you get so many followers.
Have you seen that before? I just show a little bit of leg, really, give them a tease. Well, here's a tease for you, all right? There's hope out there for Halloween. There's hope out there for Halloween. I got the details of what the state of Illinois is recommending for this haunted holiday. You know what's haunting? Seeing me in a two-piece. But first, guys, we'll get tomorrow's forecast as we head to break. More of the jam after this.
Why are there two pieces, Brandon?
Yeah, what two pieces?
News you need to know. Mayor Lori Lightfoot says she's got some concerns over remote learning's impact on preschool, kindergarten, and first grade students. That's because nationally, numbers are down for school districts that have moved to just computer instruction altogether. She says she's directed the CPS to develop plans to bring them into the fold, and that could be announced very soon. You know me, I'm very concerned for the kids as well. These kids are not going to be able to have snow days, no 2-hour delays. Why? Because they at home. School is at home now. That really sucks.
Well, those are important things to be concerned about. In addition to also just knowing where these children are. There are a lot of children that receive certain resources through our public education system. I'm thinking about the children that have special needs. Being able to locate these children and and account for them is certainly something that's important right now. And I'm also thinking about just the quality of education. If they're not enrolled in CPS, then I guess they're doing what? We're not really sure.
Well, here's the problem, right? Those kids, those ages don't know how to run any of this equipment, right? If you go beyond first grade, kids are a little bit more schooled in electronics and they can do it and they can engage better. You're talking about little kids who have no attention span. So they're going to completely get lost in the shuffle between the equipment and the lack of engagement. I think that's where a lot of the concern comes in.
Well, and obviously these are their formative years, right? These preschool years. This is where they're learning so much about themselves, and it's important years. And, you know, I wonder, because we've seen interesting statistics about the prevalency of COVID-19 and how much they spread them. And, you know, when you're really young, there aren't really too many statistics showing so much spread. And Amy, forgive a blunt question, but with your kids kind of reaching preschool age, would you start to feel more comfortable sending them to live in-person training or school?
They are. They are.
Every
day.
Okay.
My 3-year-olds are in daycare, but it's a formatted education every day. My 10-year-olds are stuck here on the couch. Hopefully that will change very, very quickly. But I needed those guys. They need to start working better on language, on their counting skills, because these are the years where everything starts developing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what the budgetary impact of this could be, since our kids, the CPS gets paid for the students that are attending. If the students aren't attending, then how does that affect the budget?
Good question.
All good questions. It really is their formative years. You know, being a kid at that time, you want to hug your friends, be around them. You want to go to the Halloween party that happens during kindergarten. Speaking of Halloween, speaking of Halloween, officials, they're offering some guidance on actually how to do Halloween during a pandemic. Some of it's obvious. They suggest doing things virtual if you can, leaving candy on a table as well in driveways or front sidewalks for trick-or-treaters as they walk by instead of actually engaging with them, and wearing face coverings. But an interesting note here, a costume mask does not replace your traditional PPE mask. You need to actually wear a mask underneath the costume mask. So it might get pretty hot during Halloween.
You know, most of the costume masks are plastic, so I totally get that needing the cloth barrier that's closer and tighter to the face than these plastic costume masks. I'm totally bummed because for the first time in a long time, Halloween's on a Saturday, and we were really looking forward to doing stuff. I love the options that they gave, and I totally understand where they're coming from, but Halloween is one of those holidays that most kids just die for. It's one of my favorite holidays, so hopefully we can all find something to do that's safe and still celebratory.
I got no reaction to Halloween, but I know it's Felicia's favorite holiday. So what are your thoughts, Phil?
I was actually trying to be nice this time. You guys know I don't like Halloween. It's so unnecessary. This made-up holiday. Wow. I was actually thinking of something nice to say just so I could humor you guys.
Oh, you
unnecessary? You guys, wait till you have kids. It's totally different. Halloween's awesome.
Okay.
Were you into it before kids, Amy?
Yeah. I was a fat kid. I like the candy.
Felicia, who hurt you? Who deprived you of a great Halloween experience?
I just think it's a silly holiday. It's not, you know, and I think honestly, I do think growing up in the city, it's just a different experience, but I'm just not into it. I think it's silly.
Well, go ahead and tell Felicia how wrong she is. You follow us on the Jam TV show. You'll find all of our social media handles there. And as we head to break, a look at the Royal Sonesta Riverfront Cam right at sunset. The Jam will be back in 90 seconds.
October 31st, my lights are off. Beautiful shot of the sun setting on our Chicago skyline. Awesome. Well, listen to this. Today it was announced that Universal is teaming up with Blumhouse for a reboot of the 1984 hit film Firestarter. The Stephen King adaptation will star Zac Efron. The original starred none other than Drew Barrymore when she was just 8 years old. So no word yet on whether or not she'll make a cameo. But for now, Drew is more focused on her talk show and showed off her knowledge of animals with Nicole Richie.
I am Dr. Drew Little. So,
oh my God, Dr. Drew Little.
So Dr. Drew Little found out that if you'd like to figure out the sex of your bearded dragon, here's how.
Okay.
So under this part of the tail, right there, but underneath, you will feel a nub if it's a girl and a prong if it's a boy. Does it feel like it has like a wishbone or a turtle?
It's a nub. It's a nub. Speedy, you're a boy. You're a boy.
No, the nub is a girl.
Oh. What?
Yes, Speedy's a girl.
Speedy. Oh my God. You know what?
Okay, clearly they are being a little silly and having a good time. You guys, don't forget to check out the Drew Barrymore Show weekdays at 5 p.m. on CW26. And don't you go anywhere. When we come back, Emmy Award-winning actor Glynn Turman. Here's a look at the week's forecast as we head to break.
This is my associate, Dr. Senator.
You're a doctor? No, sir. Name is Doctor. Dr. Senator. It was my mother's idea.
And what was her name?
Ma'am.
All right, season 4 of Fargo dropping this past week with a star-studded cast. Chris Rock plays the lead season character. Alongside him is Emmy Award-winning actor Glynn Turman, who joins us right now. Thank you for coming on. It's such an honor to chat with you, and I love this.
Good. That's good. Great to meet all you guys. How are you?
We're doing good. I wanted to ask
good?
we're good. Season 4, all about the Kansas City mob, which is such a cool part of our history that doesn't get told. We hear about New York mob, we hear about Chicago.
Right.
This is an awesome part of our history to talk about.
Yeah. No, the Kansas City mob Kansas City was very influential in the course of our country. And some of the major things that the country did. I think we had Truman came out of the Kansas City district there. And so there was a lot going on in Kansas City, a big, powerful machine in Kansas City.
Glynn, I grew up watching you first on A Different World. And then I look back at your repertoire, even then, Love Boat, Fantasy Island, Gremlins, TJ Hooker, Twilight Zone, Red Fox Show, Matlock, Murder, She Wrote. Talk to me a little bit about, in this climate especially, what was it like for a Black man in Hollywood back then? Because you were so huge in so many huge productions.
Well, it was challenging. That's one way to put it. Well, you know, Hollywood was very interesting at that time because the times were so interesting, you know, much like the times are now. It's quite a challenge. You know, the 60s, the civil rights movement was in full swing. Things were changing over. The studios and artists were writing different stories that we tried to make sure that were inclusive of different minorities. And so it was quite a challenge. And a lot of wonderful people stepped forward in trying to shape the country into a better outlook of itself, you know. And I was glad to be a part of that whole transition.
Yeah, you have shined and you have been so graceful in that role. It's been amazing to see your career over the years. I'm thinking about Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. This was one of the latest projects of Chadwick Boseman, and you worked closely with him. Can you just tell us a little bit about your time on that project and working with him?
Oh boy, he was amazing, and now that it comes to light, what he was dealing with makes him even more amazing. It makes me even more in awe of his strength and his will and his decency as a human being. You know, we didn't know. No one on the set knew that he was struggling with what he was and struggling with, and I mean, just even physical strength. He was amazing because we had a lot of. There's a lot of physicality in the role, and for him to sum it up what it took to deal with just that part of it alone says he, you know, speaks volumes for who the man was, you know. But as a human being, he was just, you know, graceful and kind, and what I love people who can take a joke, you know, and don't take themselves so seriously, and you know. And I was able to tease he and his beautiful wife, you know. I had a lot of fun with the young couple, you know, knowing that they were headed toward the altar, you know. So it was just a wonderful thing getting to know him. I'm just sorry that it was too short-lived because I would like to have gotten to know him better.
It's amazing, as we were talking about your span in working. I mean, you worked along Sidney Poitier in A Raisin in the Sun, and you go all the way through here to 2020. That evolution's insane. Is there any like one person along the way that you were the most excited to meet and work with that has lasted in your memory the most?
Not really, because when you start with Sidney Poitier, you're starting at the top. You know, it just doesn't get any better. I was never really impressed with anybody else.
Well, on that note, there's so many different platforms out there and so many different programs, and things have taken so many twists and turns back when we had like 4 channels. Is there anything you still want to do or somebody you still want to work with?
Well, you know, just more things. You know, what's wonderful about having done Ma Rainey and August Wilson's works is that there's so many wonderful roles for, you know, older actors or seasoned actors.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Turman, I got to let you, unfortunately, we're running right at the end of the show. It's been so great to chat with you. You can catch new episodes of Fargo Sunday at 9 on FX. Please accept my apologies for interrupting a legend, but we got to go. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching.
Thank you.